Okay, we are live. It took me a minute to figure out Streamlabs OBS, as it always does. This is Panicle Podcast for Geeks. This episode will be about X-Men and comic books. My guests today are Carrie Drake and Miles Wohl, who are both artists in the industry with me. Carrie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
My name is Carrie Drake. I work traditionally and digitally. I do a lot of work for Creature Curation, World of Revelo. You can check that out at creaturecuration.com or worldofrevelo.com. And I've also got my own IP that I'm working on at monsterunderground.com. So that's what I got.
Carrie, we might have to turn your mic off, your headphone. Something's clipping.
No, it's probably my headphones.
Yeah,
Um,
it worked
all
fine
right,
until we went live. So,
Yeah, great. Yeah, super.
so
I'll disconnect, and you guys just let me know if you can, because we had mic problems earlier. So you guys press forward, and I'll.
no worries. Miles, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Sure. My name is Miles Wohl. My art, I do fantasy art, I do comic art, sketch cards for Marvel Upper Deck. So if you've seen my sketch cards or found them when you open a pack, that's awesome. Some of my art you can see behind me. I also do oil painting as well. You can check out my art on milesillustration.com. Yeah. And hopefully you like it. Hit me up. Tell me if you like it. On Instagram as well, Facebook. Miles Illustration is what you got to look for. It's MYLES Illustration.
Awesome. Okay, well, I was gonna say today's topic would be about X-Men is what we picked because earlier in the week, there was a whole talk where we were all rambling in our Discord channel about the topic was Magneto. So if we want, we could really start with that topic because I guess it started. Somebody said something about changing Magneto's past to reboot him. I remember Andrew was asking me if they rebooted him because I'm reading House of X and Powers of X, which they're 6 issues each. If you haven't read them, they're phenomenal. But you have to read them in that order I sent you because it's confusing otherwise. Because we can talk about that next, but there's some interesting characters in there that I really, really love. But I think Miles, you and I were the two. Initially I was like, yeah, they could reboot him, and people will be mad, right? The problem is, like you, Miles, Magneto's your favorite, as you pointed out. If they rebooted him,
exactly.
You'd be in that list of people I was saying who would be really upset by it, right? And it's probably a pretty big list.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's probably a pretty popular character because he's one of those characters who always rides the cusp between, hero, villain, what is he? And you get a lot of fans that way. And Punisher's kind of a similar character, I think. Where most of the true heroes would call him a villain, right? But is he? So I think he endears himself to a lot of people in that way, and his backstory obviously connects with a lot of people. So, if you're going to reboot that, it's going to isolate a lot of people or make a lot of people feel like, oh, this was the character I connected with growing up for various reasons, whether it's the Holocaust background or, the intense trauma of that character's background. It's tough to reboot a character like that. I feel like it's easier to say, all right, he's a mutant, so his genes allow him to live longer, or whatever, like you do with Wolverine and others.
Yeah, that was the other thing we're talking about because I'm like, he lives in he's obviously from early X-Men series, and then the fact that he's living in the modern age with new tech, right? And it's and he's super cut, it's like, damn, dude, how old are you, But yeah, I think, I don't remember if they talk about that or not. Do they ever say that, his age is X and he's a mutant, so he ages slower than that, Carrie, say something so we can see if your mic's working.
Never seen anything specifically about that, but even when I was reading X-Men in the 90s, right? I mean, the dude's got white hair, and you could tell from the way his face is drawn that he's a little older, but then his body's super ripped and cut. All right,
I always figured his hair was white because he's seen things, and it's after a while you just shook. Carrie, I don't think I could hear you still. Nope.
No.
Welcome to the podcast, guys. This happens on a weekly basis. It's okay. It's all part of the learning process. we tested before we went live. It's just I don't know if it's something to do with Discord and Streamlabs, but I will definitely look into that once we. Just check your mic settings, Carrie, in the bottom left. Sometimes it switches up. I had another thought about Magneto, but I can't remember. Okay, so the thing I also get confused is like, you know how you're saying like sometimes he's bad and sometimes he's good, and sometimes he goes in between, and I can never tell what version of him we're getting because they keep putting him in all these different storylines, right? Like you know in remember Onslaught? He showed up. He had his memory wiped, right? So he shows up as he's technically good and he's on your side. And they spun that later somehow, but I think at the end he just went back to being himself once all his memories got flushed back in. And then in House of X, it seems like he's got like it's weird because it's going across this timeline from like very very back in the past to very forward into the future, and it shows like this period where you can't. I have not finished it yet, so I'm speaking from not knowing the end of this yet. But it shows him.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, I can't give you any spoilers because I don't know how it ends. But and nobody better ruin it for me in the chat, or I'm gonna freaking ban you. He's in like the in between, and like you could see like he's kind of still plotting stuff, but then they show another timestamp where he seems like he's working with Professor X, and then you're just like, all right, which era is this? Like, where am I in the time spectrum here? You know. All right, let's see. Carrie's back into play. Say something, Carrie.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, you sound fine now.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
I don't know what you did.
All right, cool.
You fixed it. You sounded a little garbled before.
I just went through and turned everything off and back on and off and back on. So
yeah, it's rules of IT, man. Reset. You know.
Exactly.
When I used to work IT, I always be like, first rule is reset, second rule is reset, third rule is find the problem. You know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what I could say about House of X and Powers of X without giving too much away. I'm really enjoying it because what's that? There's this character Moira, who's like Xavier's love interest.
Right.
But I didn't know that she has. Did you know she was a mutant, or did they just make her a mutant now for this?
Yeah, I didn't know that before. I read the first 4 issues since you've turned me on to House of X and Powers of X, and I read the first 4 in that order. And that one issue, which is early on, so it's not giving away too much, where they drop that she's a mutant and then kind of her multiple timelines.
Yeah,
I had never heard that before. It's possible. There's so many comics, right? And it's been going on for so long. It's so easy to lose track of things. So maybe it was dropped somewhere, but I didn't know that. I thought it was really interesting the way they did it.
I was like, this is. It's cool that they gave her that ability, and I almost spoiled one of the timelines for myself because. As I was counting through them, I was like, hey, they skipped number 6. They went from 5 to 7. What just happened here? And I thought, writers do that. Sometimes they forget, But then they show you a grid at the end. And then, 6 is very specifically branches off into, like, chaos. And you're like, don't read it yet, Like, why would they show me this at the end, And when you get to why 6 is the way it is, you're going to be like...
Sweet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
But I just
back to Magneto.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'm fine.
I want to say I really enjoyed the back and forth. Honestly, one of the episodes, one of the comics I remember most vividly from when I was younger and I first started really getting into X-Men and picking up was X-Men 275, Uncanny 275, and it's one of those comics where Magneto is trying to be good, and then that's the moment where it breaks, where he's just like, nope. And I just really remember this, and it's Jim Lee drawn, so the images are just seared into my head because they're so amazing. His art, and Magneto's standing there, and he's just got his hand out, and he's got the villain. He's got these like bars of metal ready to just like chomp down on Saladin, I think it was, and he's just like, I tried to be Xavier. I was a fool to think I could, and he was a fool to think that I could. Right? He just like closes his hand, and then boom, and then he's back to being the more serious, or you could say evil, but that version of Magneto who just takes care of business, right? And you're just like, oh, that moment just gives you the chills, right? And that that's for me one of the earliest impressions of Magneto, right?
Yeah, I mean, Carrie, you got something to say to that? Carrie?
Well, I'm just thinking, just overall, Magneto was always kind of a what?
We thought we lost you.
Anyway, okay. Now, Magneto, just kind of overall, has always been kind of a the ends justify the means kind of character. So that's kind of the dichotomy between him and Professor X. Professor X always feels, with the exception of what he did to Jean Grey, the ends never justify the means.
Right. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, when you were talking about Magneto going completely back to being himself, I was thinking of, I don't remember what issue number it is, but the one where the cover shows him ripping all the adamantium out of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Like, that was my, where I'm like, you guys fucked with them one too many times. Like,
Yeah.
all those years, he could have done that all those years to Wolverine, and he just never went that vindictive, right? It was always just like, it almost felt like he was always just trying to keep them back. Like, look, guys, you're mutants. I don't want to kill you. I just want you to leave me the hell alone.
Right.
But now you're trying to kill me. So, like, Wolverine went straight rage at him, right? I enjoyed that storyline until they spun it down to, you know, how he became, like, full beast mode, and then Wolverine had to, like, and then they put it back in him, which, you know, is supposed to be this, like, super difficult process that only so many people knew how to do, but this, like, what were they, like, the Brotherhood of Mutants or something? They knew how to do it, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tough thing about comics. It's like, you know, you want to have these monumental, awesome stories where stuff changes, but at the same time, you know, it's comic book, and it's going to go. This character's going to go on for 40 years, and they want to get him back to what he was. And so, how do you do that? How do you pull it off? And, you know, and then you get the people coming back to life and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, I think it's because they're like, I got this brilliant idea, so they're all in like a meeting or whatever, and then everyone's like, that's great, let's do it. And then they're like, well, the fans didn't like that, and now let's in X-Men. I think it's like, I want to say it's probably the #1 comic for retcons. Like, that series has just been retcon left and right. I mean, there's a whole Kotaku article, I think, about it, where it's just like pages of retcon, and you're just like, I mean, as a fan, you're kind of willing to accept that's going to happen, because maybe you were one of those, like, you know, I was one of those people, like, I didn't like the way that story went. It's you know, I'm trying to think of another.
It's difficult when it's not a finite set, right? It's not like, hey, this is a 4-year run, and we're going to write this story arc, and then it's over, and we'll never visit these characters again. These characters have to live for 40 years or more, right? So how do you do that without winding up having to change
Just
things?
because the title has its own mutant healing factor.
Right.
Carrie comes in once in a while.
So yeah, I would like to talk about X-Men, about, you know, Chris Claremont, obviously, you know, well known as one of the, you know, the greatest writers, right? The guy who really kind of changed the X-Men and gave Magneto his background and everything, right? I was watching this documentary about it, and he, you know, they killed off Jean Grey, and it was a big deal. They were talking about, you know, with Dark Phoenix, like, they were going to kill off Jean Grey, and it was this character that everybody loved, but this is the way the story's got to go. And then, you know, when they brought Jean Grey back, he was super pissed because he was like, no, we said we weren't going to do that. That was the whole point of this, right?
He should have gotten that, like, in a contract writing, you know, like Jean Grey never gets to come back to life or something. Because, like, he wrote this amazing story, and then that's the, I don't want to say problem, that's not the right word. That's the, you know, issue with being a writer. Like, your stuff's gonna, I'm learning that myself with my, like, my writers and my books. Like, I changed a lot of stuff that, you know, like, if they didn't write what I asked them to write, or if they wrote something I didn't agree with, or if I changed my mind later after I told them to write X, Y, or Z, I'm definitely gonna change it. And that's basically what happened with Claremont. He had these brilliant ideas, and the problem is Jean Grey is a staple character. She's one of the originals. Like, you could kill off Toad. Like, I couldn't think of a better character. Like, nobody would miss him.
No, you were like,
people would be like, "Oh, he's dead." Okay, but, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, they've killed Wolverine like 3 times already, right? Like, probably more than that. You know, I've got issue 100, I think, where it's just his skeleton on the outside, because they basically eradicated him down to his bones. And obviously he's back, and they reboot it, and he's back again. But I think they're learning from those mistakes, though, because, like, the newer stuff, like these House of X and Powers of X, and I think before that I read the Secret Wars with Doom. Like they're getting smart about making them only like 6 issue arcs, 12 issue arcs, and then not remember the old X-Men. You'd have to read like X-Men, you'd have to read Uncanny X-Men, you'd have to read Astonishing X-Men, and just to get the full story. You didn't have to read them all, but you know that you'd be reading Uncanny X-Men and it would end by saying, yeah, crossovers, right? It'd be like, to see where this goes, you need to get this issue of Astonishing X-Men. You're like, I don't like Astonishing X-Men. X Factor.
Right.
I forgot X Factor.
Yeah.
What am I missing
Factor,
there?
yeah.
Generation X and New
X-Force.
Mutants. Yeah,
X-Force, New Mutants, yeah.
Dude, I loved X-Force when it first came out. I never, like, a lot of people hate Rob Liefeld's art. I didn't hate his art. Yes, there it is. What do you got? Just a stack sitting next to you?
Wow, it's right next to him.
Dude, that comic, like, I remember I had to.
Well,
like,
I mean, I lost a lot of comics in a.
Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was saying I lost a lot of comics in a water heater mishap, but I've got a few good ones, and X-Force #1 is one of them.
I mean, that comic, I remember it was like one of the first times, early times I saw it came in a bag, right? It didn't come like where you can just walk to the store, pick it up, and flip through it, right? You have to actually just like roll the dice and be like, what's the secret of this comic? Why is it pre-sealed? You know, like, and what did that comic cost back in the day, Carrie? Was it like $1.75?
$1.50.
Oh, that's
$1.50.
close. Yeah. I mean, I used to get if I got any allowance from my father, it would be about $5 a week, for like mowing the lawn, vacuuming the house, all that shit. And I would take that $5 to the comic book store. I used to be very good at buying 1 or 2 comics and then spending the rest at the local video store renting a game or something. But there came a point where all that flipped for me, and I would spend that $5 at the comic book store. And yeah, man, I mean, Liefeld's drawings is because I grew up loving like McFarlane and Jim Lee. And Liefeld, I was like, this is different. And then after you read a little bit, you're like, I can't see anybody's feet. Like, occasionally you'd see like what's the ninja dude with the 2 swords? Say what? Shatterstar?
Shatterstar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would see his feet, right? Because he would do crazy kicks or whatever. But then you'd be like, yeah, I can see why he doesn't want to draw feet. But it was just different, right? Like his art style was different, so it really jumped out at you. Like he kind of has that edgy. He's got like a little Jim Lee in him, and a little bit of like. He reminds me of oh man, why am I failing to remember this guy's name? Because he always drew like big torsos.
Yeah, really big.
Remember that
Big
famous
shoulder
Captain
pads, big
America
torso.
cover?
Yeah. Oh God, that was. Oh Jesus, yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
People were like, "That's."
I think at the time I liked it. There it is.
Friggin' huge.
No feet in the whole panel.
No, the hands are really small, right? But
the hands are small. The feet are almost.
It had so much energy. Regardless, like, hey, was the anatomy great? No, but there was so much energy in those panels that it didn't matter. Like it was so cool. Looking back on it years later, when I would go back to it, once I started getting more into Jim Lee and learning about anatomy, and my own drawing got better. Then you start going, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that? Right?
But,
it's kind of that hindsight. But at the time, like the energy was amazing.
I mean, I also like he did things that a lot of artists would just streamline their drawings and call it a day. Whereas he had like 100 pouches on, like look at Cable for example. It's like, what do you got in all those pouches? It's like Utility Belt City, but it still made the character cool, right? Like,
Exactly.
And did Liefeld create Cable? I don't remember.
Yeah.
He did, right? Okay.
Yeah, that was his.
But he also
he created Indominus, a ton of great characters.
Yeah, Deadpool. He was the one that made me appreciate like artists like Humberto Ramos when they came out, and Joe Madura. Is that how you say the last name? Because they had like Madureira, Joe Mad. Because they had like the very like streamlined bodies, but then they had the huge hands and the huge feet, like Max. Remember? And like I feel like if I didn't get that small stepping stone from Liefeld over to that, I would have been totally weirded out when I saw Humberto Ramos artwork for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like graffiti style art in comic books, which I totally wasn't used to. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Jay Lee was another one that was like that.
oh, Jay Lee. He went on to
Yeah.
do a lot of like Transformers things, I believe.
Yeah.
No, that was Pat Lee, I think. But like McFarlane
Yeah,
and Jim Lee were always my first. What's that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 'Cause it just brings a lot of energy. Like, it's not so much about the structure. The things that matter are there, and it's telling the story, right? And that's what mattered about Rob Liefeld's artwork. It told the story. And
Yeah.
it had a lot of energy. And he was doing splash pages and just like, that was kind of the era where the artists kind of took over Marvel, right? And
Yeah.
the writers actually, they weren't super happy about it because they were used to the other structure, the more paneled structure, right? And these guys were
Right.
just like boom,
Throwing it all over the
it's
place.
giant splash,
Yeah.
Yeah.
breaking
Yeah.
borders everywhere in the art.
But that's what like
It was awesome.
that was yeah, exactly. That was awesome is the way to describe it. That was like the one you were like it's kind of what brought you back into because I used to have like old X-Men comics back in the day and I think my mom gave some of those away, so I'll never forgive her for that. But I started collecting X-Men again with the Jim Lee run. Like I remember he had that 4-panel layout, and you were like, "I'm gonna buy all 4 of these because it's the only way to create the whole art." I thought I had it back here somewhere. Nope, I must have packed it up.
Yeah, I kind of take
Yeah.
the counter view, man, because I bought comics for the artist, and a couple of issues of X Force or New Mutants, I couldn't take it anymore. The anatomy was, I cut my teeth on John Byrne. I kind of see him as just kind of meat and potatoes, very. It was easy to look at his stuff. The anatomy was all maybe not perfect, but it was proportional. And then Liefeld shows up with this kind of anatomy with these super long legs, shoulder in the wrong place. The torso only comes down to here, and then 3/4 of his body is leg. I couldn't do it, man. There was one issue. Yeah, that one issue of New Mutants showed. It was, I think, Warpath is walking down the street with somebody, and there's one panel where he tries to do a bird's eye view, and Warpath is the same height as a light pole,
Right.
like a street light. He's the same height. Then they come down to the street view, and he's like this much taller than everybody else. I was like, what am I looking at?
That's a failure in perspective. That light pole's supposed to be in the back somewhere. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, it's like he drew like we did when we were young, trying to learn how to draw. Like we didn't care about perspective and things lining up.
That's right, and the thing is, he was whipping these things out like at superhuman speed. So I can't really fault him for that because
he's
my
cranking
stuff
them out
is
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I kind of agree. In some ways, like the thing about it that's cool is the energy is there and all that, but eventually that kind of wears thin, right? It only lasts for so long.
Yeah.
You get a few episodes deep, a few issues deep and whatever, and eventually you start noticing all these things that beyond the energy, right, of the panel, and and then it starts to fade away, right? The veneer starts to crack. You're just like, okay, maybe this isn't as I first thought it was. It's like looking back and realizing that you like Limp Bizkit. And you're like, wait a minute.
Hey man,
why did I like that?
Dude, I still like Nookie. That's a good song.
Yeah,
that reverb on the guitar. That reverb on the opening guitar riff. You're like, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the album is just whatever. But that song, I still remember the summer that song came out. I had a friend who was working at the local rec center. He didn't have a car. My family was in India and I was in charge of the house, and I was picking him up from work every day and driving him back home. And I remember when that song came out, I was driving to pick him up, and in Chicago there's a radio station here called Q101. They would do the top 9 at 9. And obviously it's 9 new songs, and fucking Nookie literally went from number 9 all the way to number 1. They'd be like number 8, number 7, same fucking song. And I never even heard of this band, okay? And that was their second album, by the way. And I was driving, and I'm just like, oh, this is a good song. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I remember I pulled up to get my friend. I was just like, dude, this song has been playing for the last 15 minutes. And he was like, I was just listening to it inside, and it was like the biggest deal. Like that.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't want to talk about Nookie anymore.
It starts to wear thin, right? You start to hear it, those songs over and over again. You're like, oh, he's kind of freaking whiny. Like,
Yes.
I'm tired of whine, and eventually it starts to wear thin on you. And you can hear those songs now, but like, you're just like, yeah, I'm not picking up any more of their albums. Like, it had its moment, I enjoyed it, and now the veneer is cracked for me. Right. That's how I feel about like Rob Liefeld's art. Like, there was a moment in time where I loved it, but then I got past that and the veneer cracked, and I realized how much better guys like Jim Lee and McFarlane and Silvestri were. You know?
Well, I mean, I had lost a little bit of that flavor I had for Lee too with the X-Men line, because it all just kind of, and it's not his fault. They're feeding him the like poor writing at some point, right?
Right.
But when he left and started doing stuff like Wildcats and what was the other one he did? Was Wetworks Jim Lee?
Yeah, Wetworks was Silvestri.
Oh, Silvestri. Okay. Like when they formed Image Comics, that's kind of like breathed a little new life into those artists for me. And even then, like, I liked Wildcats. I liked Wetworks a lot. There was, what's the other one? I can't remember. Spawn obviously came from Image. Spawn was like, holy shit, man. I remember when I saw the first Spawn issue. But then, Jim Lee. Yep, there it is. You bastard. I've got a Spawn, what is it, 300 blank? Because someday in my life, maybe I'll run into McFarlane at the airport and I'll just be like, please draw inside this for me. I've got Todd McFarlane Spider-Man #1 on the wall here. I don't know if this will. I'm not taking it off the wall, but it's there. What was I gonna say? But like Jim Lee, when he started doing, I got way back into Jim Lee when he started doing Batman 608, which was the first, which is this guy right here. But it was like he did like he started. You could see he had evolved more as an artist, and his X-Men line definitely breathed new life in X-Men. You can't deny it. Like he had a very specific way of drawing. It has the energy of his, everybody who taught him. It's got his own specific style and spin to it.
Right.
Kind of stepping away from the comic side of things. Do you guys remember the old X-Men cartoon? I think there was maybe 5 episodes. Not the Fox one. The one before that.
Oh.
There was.
I don't
know about that.
There was a cartoon. I want to say it was in the early 80s. It was. I don't know if it was Hanna-Barbera that drew it. Let me do a quick.
Really?
Let's do a quick Google search. That's how we find these answers.
I'm not sure if I know that one. I definitely remember the Fox one. I mean, I would not miss an episode of that. And it was funny because it was a bit of a love-hate relationship for me, because like the comics were so much more adult, and I wanted this more like darker, moodier, like adult Jim Lee version of the X-Men. And what you get on cartoons isn't that, because Wolverine's basically useless unless it's an adult episode of something, because like with those claws, you just stab people, blood's flying everywhere. You can't do that in a cartoon, right?
That's true.
I wish they could. The Spawn animated series on HBO was amazing. That's what I wanted for X-Men. I wanted an adult, version of it.
So
even when I was 15, I wanted a version of it.
So it's called the X-Men Pride of the X-Men.
Pride of X-Men.
And I don't remember if there's more than one episode or not. I can't remember. I think there was this pilot episode, but what I'm having a hard time remembering is if there was more than one episode, because I just remember seeing it, and I was really young, and I remember it had it looked like it's definitely an old cartoon, but it had this scene in it with Nightcrawler, and he was like bamfing all around, and I remember immediately, like up until that point in my head, the boogeyman was Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers. Don't know why. That dude gave me the heebie-jeebies for some reason. And this looks like it came out in 1989. And then I just remember it showed, but when it showed Nightcrawler, I immediately associated the boogeyman with this blue demon. And I was just like, I don't like that. That's kind of creepy. But as most of you guys know, Nightcrawler is my favorite character. So,
so how did that transition happen, where he was someone that creeped you out to becoming your favorite character?
It's like Batman. I embrace my fear. No,
guys, it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, you can.
All right.
It's worth watching. It's for its time. It wasn't bad at all, actually. But
I'll be watching that later.
I think Nightcrawler was just one of those
Yeah.
characters that once you learn his story, and he's got that like he's going through a lot of suffering the way some of us have as artists, I think, and that kind of I can relate to him on that level. And
Mhm.
uh, he's very forgiving of people who hate him for who he is, which also we can all relate
Yeah.
to as being artists. So he's relatable, minus the fact we're not all blue demons. Like everyone, if you ask most people who's your favorite X Men, most people immediately lean into Wolverine, and it's obvious.
Right.
Wolverine's an obvious answer. He's the badass we all wish we could be, you know.
Yeah.
But like, if you really like go to the cusp of a character, like yours is Magneto, right? So it's not, and it's kind of nice to hear people pick something other than Wolverine
Mm.
or Superman. If you ask for a DC character,
Yeah.
I'm like, Superman's weak, man.
So, all right. Superman's annoying. It's just too cookie cutter. But there weren't superheroes back then, right? He was the first, pretty much, right? So,
I get it.
What are you gonna do?
Totally. If I ask an older person like who read early comics, I'm talking when I say older, I mean like in their 70s, 60s, 70s. Yeah, obviously read. Carrie, don't laugh. You're not 60. You're fine.
Dude, I know. That's kind of why I'm laughing, because Superman was my shit. I was a John Byrne guy, and I read his.
Right.
I was hardcore Superman.
Is Superman your favorite character?
No,
really,
actually.
Go on.
Well, in the DC universe, yeah, he's my favorite. In Marvel universe, Cap is my favorite. He's the same guy. He's the Superman from Marvel. The powers are different, but the mentality that I always liked the guy who was the stand up, stalwart, nothing but good. I always liked that, because it probably has a lot to do with my upbringing. Like the whole world is against you, everything is evil. Here's this one beacon of good and hope. Those were always the characters I was attracted to. But then the character that ended up being my favorite was Hellboy.
Oh man, Hellboy's so good.
That's cool.
Yeah,
we're gonna do a whole thing about Hellboy, I think, next time too, because it sounds like Steph wants to get in on that conversation.
Yeah,
ask who people's like least favorite mutant or character, if you just want to go there, was. And it's so funny because of what you describes because your favorite character describes my least favorite character, which is Cyclops. Always did not like Cyclops. I never could really stand those characters who felt to be like too good or very generic-y kind of feeling. And it's great to hear it from the opposite side of why people really like those kind of characters, as opposed to me, who's like, I don't like those characters.
Yeah.
If we want to stick to just our favorite X character, like Cyclops, I mean, I always thought the old version of him was pretty cool because of the way Carrie's looking at things. He was always like, we stand for something, and he was always like, he was the one who had to drive the point home to the younger students, like, even though these people hate us for who we are, we need to be better than them, right? Professor X could have just instilled that thought in their heads with his mind, but he needed to teach them that lesson. You have to learn that lesson. You can't just force feed it, right? And Cyclops was always good about that. But I loved how they spun his storyline to what is it called? Was that Extinction Agenda, where he's like just goes rogue, and and then they put out those like
sometime. No, I think it's sometime later than that, but I know what you're talking about.
I can't remember what it's called, but they had all those political posters where it's like Cyclops was right and then Magneto was right, and you were like either Team Magneto or Team Cyclops, because that was one of the few times, as you were saying, Magneto was like, no, wait, slow down, man, like, you're gonna kill everybody. And Cyclops is like, we need to take it down to zero, and we're the dominant species, so the dominant species should take over. If I remember correctly, that's how that went. And
Cyclops' character definitely changed a lot over the years.
Well, you can only be the Boy Scout for so long before you're like, I need to bust some heads open here.
Plus, from a writing standpoint, if you're going to make the character interesting, you've got to break them a little bit.
Yeah, you make him bad, and people are like, what just happened? Like, this guy's supposed... It's like, I'm trying to think who my least favorite X character is. I don't really... I mean, there's obviously a bunch of them where I'm just like, like Toad. I'm going to always go back to Toad, because I just hate that character. He just was never. And when they put him in the movie, I was like, seriously, he's in the fucking movie. You know, like, why not? Like, I was excited when they put Pyro in the movie,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
I did like the fact that he didn't need his tools to do his abilities. I was excited when they put Juggernaut in the movie, and that movie should not exist. Like, I think
Yeah.
what they're trying to do, what I've heard rumors that what Marvel now, or Disney, since they now own Marvel, what they're trying to do is spin these characters into the movies, right? And they're supposed to slowly show up. And what they're saying is they're trying to either A, they're going to completely just retcon the movies and say the Fox movies don't exist. These characters are here in this universe. They've always been in this universe, and we'll introduce
They
them.
need to do that.
Yes, they need to do that. Versus, I really hope they don't do it because they were saying they're gonna go 1, 2, and then move them in, and like 3 doesn't exist. And I'm just like, just don't make the first 2 exist either, man. That way you can reboot all those characters, right? That way you can have. Actually, the other thing I heard was they might use the first. What's it called? The First Class. The new one with Michael Fassbender and just those characters into the Marvel universe. But I'm like, just reboot them in.
Why?
Yeah.
I'd rather see them start over, kind of like create like they did with Avengers, and just create this storyline that has a clear arc from start to finish. Don't just toss out random movies. Have a plan like they did with the Avengers. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and they can step right into the X movies from the Avengers because we had this extinction level event with the snap. Well, it caused this burst of gamma radiation. What a perfect way to start these mutagens, get them into action, to start the mutation rolling worldwide. But
that's a tweet, Carrie. You got to get on Twitter and post that, and then when they make that storyline, you can be like, I said it first.
I called it.
Don't forget to trademark it after you post it.
Don't mess with Deadpool because that is perfect right now.
What's that? Yeah, don't mess with Avengers.
Don't reboot Deadpool because that is just perfect. That's what I've been waiting for forever. Is it be like that?
Well, they're saying they might not. Is it Fox that funded that? I think they're saying they're not going to put money in for the third one, which I think is stupid. You should just put money in for it because I get it. The second one wasn't the best version. It could have been, but he was working on a tight budget.
I loved it.
I liked the first one a lot. I thought it was great. The second one, I was half in and half out. I was super excited when they bought in Cable and Shatterstar. I always liked Shatterstar. And then they just kind of waste those. They kind of like all those characters they brought in, and they die when they're diving out of that airplane. I was like, what am I even watching right now? I get it. They're like I liked how he was like, we only had the budget for these characters. That's why we only have these characters in here, right? Like you've heard the story about how he got Negasonic in there, right? Like apparently he went to the studios and wanted to buy X-Men characters to have in the movie. And there's a price scale for like you want Wolverine, it's ridiculously high. You want Colossus, he's somewhere in the low key areas. And Negasonic, the producers were literally like, "Who?" And they're like, "We'll take her." Like
that's great.
Yeah. Like so they ran with that. So they ran with these characters.
The actors are great, and the writing is great for that. What they did with that character, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like
Deadpool 2. I laughed the whole way through that movie. I thought they did a great job with Cable too. Just the look and writing. I absolutely loved it. Felt really true to Cable.
Yeah, his the way he play. Well, I think the actor has said he would play it differently now, a little tougher. I do think they need to have. I mean, I don't want to see a Rob Liefeld Cable running around on screen, but for a while they were saying they were gonna use the dude who was from Avatar as the main bad guy, but they ended up casting Josh Brolin, and he's good. He's great as Thanos. I'm half in and half out on him as Cable. I thought he was cool as Cable, but I don't know. I just didn't like where the storyline went at the end there.
Deadpool. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought he was great as Cable. I definitely enjoyed it. I love the reference there to Rob Liefeld as well in that movie, right? Where they're like, I think they were talking about, he was talking about Domino, right? Like, who creates a character whose power is luck? Probably some artist who can't draw feet or something like that. And I was like, oh damn.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
Call out.
I mean, Liefeld can obviously laugh at that because he's going home with millions in his pocket at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
But Liefeld, I think was on on Twitter, and he had said like, or maybe it was Instagram, I forget, but he had said, yeah, we're probably not going to see a third one because nobody wants to fund it. And I was like, do the same thing you did with the first two. Get your own funding. Like, I guarantee you those guys could start an Indiegogo and fans would push the money in because Deadpool is technically an X-Force character. And people love X-Men. And there is a rumor that the MCU is trying to work Deadpool into the movie somehow. I mean, that's just a rumor. I'm not going to believe any of that because that character is hard to spin into that world.
Yeah.
But
he breaks the fourth wall way too much.
That's the problem. They're saying they're going to start with the Fantastic Four though, and then bring in the X-Men after that.
I would love to see one good Fantastic Four movie.
Well, you know why we keep getting shitty FF movies, right? It's Fox, when they had that contract, they apparently had to. Their contract stated they had to film a Fantastic Four movie they had to release one every 4 years or every 5 years. How many ever that the year stamp is that those broke out into? Otherwise, they lose the license of those characters. Right. Which I was like, what? How would you not buy a license?
That's the whole purpose of that first one, that first awful one from the 90s with Jay Underwood, where Jay Underwood was the big headlining star of the movie.
I remember that. I saw it at the comic book store with my friends. We were all like, oh shit, a Fantastic Four movie. This is going to be great. And if you had filmed us from the beginning of that movie to the end, I think, how old was I when I saw that? 14 or something? I would have probably took a shot of whiskey at the end of that movie. Like,
I've never actually seen it. I did see the old Captain America from around the same time.
That's what I was gonna say. For the technology they had, for the time stamp they were filming, those movies weren't that bad. Like the Captain America movie, I remember that. Do you remember the old school Spider-Man? Which
one? Like the Electric Company?
The Electric Company? I forget who.
We had the mirror eyes, and he'd shoot his hand out, and then cut to a net being thrown over people.
Well, then, like Peter Parker, I remember. You know what the thought I had as a kid when Peter Parker would be at the newspaper reporting things and talking to his bosses. He's a white dude with this giant afro, and I'd be like, how does he get all that under the mask? Like, that mask is pretty tight, you know. But I remember that show, and I loved it because they went the extra mile. Remember, they had stuntmen who would climb on the walls and like tall buildings too. Like, you know, they'd be like, now turn around and look down. Excuse me, you know, like like I'm just climbing one direction. But they never, thankfully, made a janky X-Men like that. Because remember, there was Spider-Man, there was Captain America, there was that Fantastic Four, there was that Hulk and Thor movie. Oof.
Yeah.
That shit was rough.
The Hulk and Daredevil movie.
Dude, I've never seen the Hulk and Daredevil movie.
Yeah.
I'm
just gonna pretend, and I
would be scared to watch that.
It's just as bad. So you remember the Daredevil show on Netflix where he starts off in all black? That was the take they had on him back in the early 90s or whenever they filmed that one.
I didn't realize that. Is it Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk still?
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. He's a cool dude, by the way. I've met him a couple times at Comic Cons.
Oh yeah, I'd love to meet him.
He's like the nicest guy. He will definitely throw you through several walls.
That's funny. I think about kids today. Like if I was a kid today, how awesome it would be, right? You know, these high budget comic movies, like it's all very accepted culture now. You know, it's so much different than 20, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
When it was just like, you know, you were hoping to get anything that was barely good, you know, made from a comic book, and now it's just super high budget Disney movies.
Oh yeah.
And nothing like you would only. So I made the mistake of watching the filming of Avengers and stuff, where it's just like all blue screen and there's like nothing else said. And you got to give credit to those actors because they're legit acting with. There's stuff there, but there isn't a lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, back in the day, you filmed on set. You'd be like outdoors somewhere filming on set.
Right.
So like, but it's like, yeah, like these days you get these like crazy high budget movies where you don't know what it's like to get that shitty. I'm gonna say The Rocketeer, even though I love The Rocketeer, but like they were working with the budgets they had. Like I love The Rocketeer for the way it was, for the character.
Mhm.
There's parts of that movie where you're just like, damn, they could have done that better. They
Yeah.
could, if they rebooted The Rocketeer, I might be a little sad, but I'd be hopeful that I get a better version of that movie. It's like The
Yeah.
Shadow. Do you remember The Shadow?
Yeah. Oh,
I liked the movie and I enjoyed the way they filmed it. But yeah, if they had a better budget, that character could have. Shadow's a cool character. I used to listen to that. I'm not that old, but I used to listen to The Shadow on the radio.
He's a cool character. You're right, but that movie was.
That's
awful.
basically somebody who's like, I got this cool idea, and when I saw the first X-Men movie, it was Bryan Singer, right? Like, he understood those characters, like you could
Yeah.
tell, like, the movie itself, you know, not the greatest movie in the world, but for the budget he had, and he did a great job with the first two, and then they handed it over to some chuckle fuck on the third one.
They
Yeah.
traded movies.
Describe those movies because they were just kind of like average. They're okay. They weren't
Yeah.
terrible, but they could have been so much more. And so as a fan, you're so disappointed, but at the same time you're super happy that they're on the on the big screen. Right? It's
Right,
just
right.
like this war in your head.
Yeah, like I remember, because that's the thing. That's when like you've got these low key movies coming out one after another. Fantastic Fours, whatever, and then you get the first Avengers movie, and you're just like, what did I just see? Like,
Yeah.
It could be like, right?
because Disney is
For all
literally
these
like,
characters, and then you're just like, please, I want to see it like this,
Yeah. like, please, this is fine with me. Keep making these. I remember.
Yeah.
I still remember when I saw Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, and I loved it. Like,
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
when the first scene where he's just like crawling up the wall and swinging, I just remember thinking, this is the Spider-Man I've been waiting for my whole life. Like, here it is. But then I saw Homecoming with the new guy, or no,
Yeah.
just the scene where they
Yeah.
show him in the Avengers film where he's at the airport and he takes
Civil War,
Cap's
yeah.
shield,
Right.
and you're just like, this is the Spider-Man I've been waiting for my whole life.
Yeah.
Like,
That's right.
he's like literally running his mouth while fighting and just being Spidey. And I'm just like, whoever wrote that character and those two directors and the writers, they get that character. And
Yeah.
you need more of that. Like, so whoever is put in charge of the X films, you need someone who's going to sit there and just wax poetic about X-Men to you all day, where you're just like, I don't know half the stuff you just said, but you sound like you know what you're doing. Like, like, and you need people who like love the characters, because they're gonna want to see that come to life better. Like, what's his name? Did Avengers 1? Joss Whedon, right? Like, he's an okay director, but he doesn't know those characters, and that's why the movie was action packed and it was fun to watch. But we got to know those characters better once the Russo brothers took over.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm hopeful that an X movie will have that. I can't imagine Disney can f this up. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine they could. They've got the perfect formula. Like, there was a thing I saw once on
Right.
YouTube. I could probably dig it out and post it on this channel and send it to you guys. But it shows the structure of filming, a structure of like how these newer movies are filmed, and there's like a 5-step process or something. But when it comes to Marvel movies, it eliminates some of it brings it down to a 3-step process, I believe. So it's literally like action, more action, storyline, climax, and action. Like, there's no like in between. There is technically an in between growth happening, but it's happening so quickly for all of us, right? Because most of us know these characters, so we don't really need to. It's like, how many times have you seen Uncle Ben die on screen?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so that's one of the things I loved
We
about
don't-
Homecoming. Like, I love that scene in Homecoming where he's talking to his best friend, and it's literally like not even 10 seconds. His friend's like, so spider bit you and you got these powers? He's like, yeah, man. And then I could do all these things. And then end scene. And you're like,
Yeah.
nobody even talks about Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
He's gone. Like, you don't need to know he got shot or stepped off a bridge or went out to get milk and never came back. Like, he's just gone.
The same origin story so many damn times. Like, I'm tired of seeing Batman rebooted, right? I mean, it's just like I don't need to see the Batman origin story again. We all know it. Let's just jump into a story with Batman.
I mean,
right.
The Nolan ones, we should do an episode on Batman. We'll save that. But the Nolan ones were good.
I like the movies. I just I don't need him to spend time on his past again. Like we all know what happened.
But that's my point with these Marvel flicks now. Like they did Captain because he's an important character, so you had to get his story. And depending on like Iron Man, these are important major characters. But like like Black Panther is a prime example of this. They didn't. They gave you the storyline. They gave you like the lineage storyline. Everyone, as they become the king, they become a Black Panther. They have to train for it, or they have to like. Obviously, his bloodline is that, but they didn't go into like a past storyline and show you his like training or his upbringing or any of that stuff really. Spider-Man, the same thing, because I mean, I kind of wish they had done with Black Panther because he's an important character too, but
yeah,
because you don't need the coming of age story, like that's like
they would have lost the character if they did that.
Superhero story.
Yeah. Right? I think in the case of Black Panther, they wanted to get right to the action because they wanted to show you how cool that character is, Yeah.
Well, and also the movies were going at a breakneck pace because we were headed right toward the Infinity Gauntlet.
That's true. So they had those phases.
They had to really get in there and advance that character very quickly.
Yeah.
That's true.
Infinity War, I'm sorry, not Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I like about Disney and what they're doing right now is they have everything broken down into phases. And hang on one second. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
But like, I lost my train of thought because somebody interrupted me.
Well, I'll interrupt you again. They treat the movies kind of the way that they did the comic books way back when, like you were saying. If you want to get the rest of this story, read this other comic. They're doing that with the movies too. So there's a strong through line of the big, the big movies with all the characters. But then if you want to know more about Spider-Man, go watch Homecoming. You want to know more about Black Panther, go watch Black Panther.
Yeah, you can watch the independent films if you want more research on. But I like the fact that they're taking the thought to say this character needs to be introduced first because it's important for this character to show up at this point. Like there's a reason they're doing Fantastic Four before X-Men because X-Men is important to the series, but Reed Richards is more important to the next story arc, which I believe is bringing Ultron back in. I think it was Ultron or what's the other guy? Damn, I can't remember his name. I don't remember. There's another guy. There's like a time traveling. He looks like a kind of like a bug. He's from the Inhuman series, I think now.
No, I'm not sure.
I don't remember. He's like a I'm gonna call him a time bandit, the villain. But I think if I can't remember, I can't. Damn it! Somebody in the chat could tell me. But I believe that's the story arc they want to go to because Ultron is never 100%. There's a great series with Ultron and like I think it's a Secret War, but it's basically he has taken over, and like what's his name? Ant-Man, Hank Pym, right? Like they send Wolverine back in time because Hank Pym is the one who originally creates Ultron in the comic books. In the movies, it's obviously Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, but they send Wolverine back in time to kill Hank Pym to prevent Ultron from being created. It's brutal.
Damn.
But Ultron obviously always has a contingency plan on top of a contingency plan. So
yeah,
I think they teased Adam Warlock as well, right? At the end of one of the movies. I can't remember which movie it was. And they never did it.
Yeah, Guardians 2.
Guardians 2.
It's
like, all right, is that going to come in at some point, right? Because he was obviously key key character in the Infinity Gauntlet series in the comic books, right? He
Right.
was
I was waiting
one
for
of the key
him.
characters.
Did they? Is there a Guardians
Yeah.
3? Yeah.
No,
No.
there's not.
Yeah.
There's not a Guardians 3 yet.
So at the end of 2
Not
is
yet.
where they show that. Yeah, they show the Cocoon, right? And the lady's like, I think
Yeah.
I'll name him Adam.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to show up in that last movie for the Gauntlet because he's supposed to be the one who wields that gauntlet at the end. And there's a good chance he will show up because the Gauntlet is now with. Did the Gauntlet get destroyed at the end of the movie? No, right?
It got destroyed.
It did?
It's destroyed. Yeah, he used the stones to destroy the other stones.
I don't
So
remember.
yeah, they're gone.
Okay. I'm going to have to watch
Well, of course,
that again.
we're dealing with time travel now. So
Yeah, they
the
can do
Infinity
whatever
Gauntlet
they
is
want.
all over time. So yeah,
We all know they can time hop and get those things back. But I'm trying to figure out where they would spin Warlock in. But I was waiting for Warlock because I was like, that dude is such a strong character. And
yeah,
I think that's the problem. They don't know how to work him in. Because remember, he shows up in the Infinity Gauntlet to be like, here's how we stop this dude. They used all the elements from that series except him.
yeah.
Right.
And Wolverine.
They did. I had heard, and I can't back this up, but I had heard that it was more of a legal thing, that some licensing barrier or something like that.
It always is.
Here.
The thing is,
So they-
like companies like Fox who own all these characters, and Disney's over here trying to, like, Sony's a prime example of this. Sony owns Spider-Man, so Disney has to give a cut of the movies to Sony, and there's a rumor, or there's Sony was saying we're gonna take our character back at the end of the next movie and do another Spider-Man movie, and everyone's like, don't do that. And this happened like last year, and they came to a deal finally. Basically,
Yeah.
I think Sony was getting 20%, and now they're getting 25%. Where
Yeah.
Disney is just being cheap because Disney could easily just be like, we're just gonna buy you guys, you know, like
Disney buys Sony.
yeah, pretty much, right? Like they could just
Yeah.
outright, or if Sony's like, we want. The thing is, Sony's hasn't put a number on what that character costs because he's gonna make bank regardless of what fashion he
Right.
comes out in.
Right.
So Disney can't just outright buy the character. But there's the funny thing what people are saying online was like, Disney should just buy Sony and just be like, there you go, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, they already bought Lucasfilm. They already bought Fox,
I get
and they were spread. I mean,
I
Michael
get
Iger was just Bob
But I
Iger.
mean, like, yeah,
Bob Iger,
but
not Michael.
you know,
I think of Michael
Sony's-
Eisner. Sorry.
technically Sony's asking for, they should just give them the percentage. It's like, you still got this character, you're still making a ton of money, but it's all business, right? So I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there, but
Right.
that it worried me when I was like, don't take Spider-Man back, please. Like,
Yeah, and then a crappy movie just in the middle of all the good movies. Like, oh, come on, don't do that.
yeah, don't screw this up for the
Exactly.
rest of us. But I'm gonna have to wrap this up soon.
Yeah.
It has been fun talking to you guys about comic books and X-Men. I think
Absolutely.
we'll definitely do
Yes.
one about Hellboy if you guys are interested, because I believe it was Steph wanted to talk about graphic novels, and that Hellboy falls into that category for me. So,
Yeah.
let's see. Either next week or the week after. I think next week I'm gonna have Sean Price on, who's running a Kickstarter currently still. So I'm gonna have him on to talk about that. And I know one of his hobbies is tattooing. So we're gonna talk about tattoos, and then we'll probably talk about. I told him let me know what his hobbies are, and we'll sprinkle it in and go from there, because that's the whole point of the show, is talk about hobbies and art and whatever. So
Sweet.
all right, well, I'll tell you guys when we're not live, but thanks for anyone who was watching us. I appreciate that. Thanks, Carrie and Miles. Do you guys want to plug your websites one more time, Carrie?
Yeah, it's monsterunderground.com, worldofrebelo.com, creaturecuration.com, and then I'm on the socials as Carrie R. Drake.
Carrie R. Drake. Miles?
Yeah, Miles Illustration, MYLES Illustration on the socials. My website's milesillustration.com. You can also find me on mileswohl.com. My last name WOHL. Check it out.
Real quick before I can't close this out, do you want to show the artwork you showed us the other day, Miles? Are you allowed to show that?
Oh yeah, I can. Oh, you're talking about the Iceman?
I mean, if you want to show off the Iceman and that Cosmic Ghost Rider, I think people get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Sure. That Iceman might still be. I think it's dry now. It's oil. So anyway, I've been doing these small paintings just for fun and just for learning experience. I've taken some of my sketch cards, and then so I thought, okay, I want to turn some of my sketch card sketches into actual paintings, and so blew them up. And this is the Iceman. This one, this is a fun one.
Yeah, that Iceman is.
There you go.
That's sick, man.
If anyone is interested, go to Miles' website. I'm sure he's willing to sell those to you guys.
Yeah, those will be available.
All right, guys, I'm gonna close the stream out. Thanks again to anyone
All
who's watching us. Hopefully, we won't have any technical difficulties next time.